Hi there. After some unforeseen delays, sorry that when I said last time that I would be back next week, that next week lasted 2.5, my DPA 4017C review is finally here. As always, I've tested with the same methodology. I've set my peaks to be the same, measured the noise floor, which you'll see in a bit, read out 20 sentences between 1 and 9 words, testing character voices, sibilants, plosives, proximity, etc. I've balanced the levels between different microphones for fairer comparisons, and then normalized the balanced audio in order to make it as loud as possible so you can hear it. But there are no other changes, no editing, no second takes, just the adjustments to balance the noise. The microphones I'm testing are as follows. Obviously, the most important microphone of all is the DPA 4017C. That's the microphone being featured in this video. So let's have a look at the frequency response. Now, as you can see, other than this tiny little odd bump right at the top, it is flat. Really quite very flat, particularly for a shotgun microphone, particularly for a short shotgun microphone. Now, if you saw my review of the Sennheiser MKH 8050, you could be pretty confident that the flatness of the frequency response means one thing: I am going to hate this microphone. Now, to give it a bit of a fair chance, what I have done is I have recorded it using the Shure A15HP high-pass filter. As you can see from the charts, that actually makes the curve more like the other shotguns anyway, and I think it is a fairer comparison that way. I think, broadly speaking, the 4017 does need the high-pass filter, and what that means is you need the MMC-B attachment, which contains the high-pass filter. Attaching that makes it the 4017B, not the 4017C. The only thing is that if you have the B, you have a full length of 211 millimeters. If you have the C, as I was testing, you have 154 millimeters. And for me, the length was more important than the sound. Actually, being able to afford one and not managing to find the other secondhand was more important than the other, but that's by the by. Other than that, the frequency is pretty similar to the 2017, except for this really odd bump right at the top. I don't know what that bump is for. You know, DPA are quite well known for making their microphones. I imagine that that bump was very carefully engineered to be there and compensates for something. I don't know whether it compensates specifically for the wind filter it comes with, and it seems a little high-pitched for that, or whether it... honestly, I've no idea. If you've got a clue why there's this little weird bump, could you please leave me a comment and explain it to me? The self-noise for this microphone is pretty quiet. I mean, let's be honest, it's pretty quiet for most of the microphones that I'm testing in this video. It's 13 dBA or 24 dB CCIR, and unsurprisingly, that means that at the level I was recording at, and once normalized for comparison, I was getting a noise floor of -69, and that just reflects the fact that it's a very narrow polar pattern picking up. It's not picking up the extra noise that, say, a cardioid does when I tend to get closer to, kind of 62, 63 in the noise floor. My experiences with the microphone are minimal. I bought it. I used it just for the review. I unfortunately still own it. I'm trying to sell it. If you're interested, let me know. I'll give you the link to eBay or Reverb. Other than that, I haven't used it for reasons that are probably pretty clear. If you've seen my last video, I fell in love with the MKH 8060. It's not a cheap microphone. It is £1,345 in the UK from the cheapest place I could find, which was Pink Noise. And from the US, I'm less familiar with US retailers, so I always use B&H Photo and Video. And from them, it is $2,105. Now, this is a bit of an odd video because I'm not actually testing everything in kind of one set of comparisons. I'm going to be playing one set of tests and then a second set of tests. So in the first set of tests, I'm comparing the 4017C to the 2017. Now, if you've seen my review of the DPA 2017, you will know that I was not a fan of it because it was so uncoloured as a microphone, which is probably contrary to what many people are looking for. The 2017 was very similar in self-noise, also 13 dBA, and it got almost the same noise floor, minus 68 rather than 69. It is, however, wildly cheaper. It is £829 from Wex in the UK and $1,095, which seems pretty damn well priced, from Amazon in the US. So in the first test, I'm playing the 4017 and the 2017 together. In the second set of tests, I'm playing the 4017 up against the Sanken CS-M1 and the MKH 8060, which, if you know, are my favourite two shotgun microphones. My favourite short shotgun and my favourite ridiculously short shotgun. In fact, the CS-M1 is what I'm recording right now. So the CS-M1, one of my favourite microphones, ridiculously small. It's 103 millimeters. It's 55 grams. I mean, that's the same weight as an MKH 8050. It has ridiculously high self-noise. It's got 16 dBA, and they don't even publish their CCIR, probably because that would come out at something like 32. It is prone to a bit of a broadband hiss, and that is the only flaw in the microphone. It is my go-to travel microphone, and in comparison to most of these microphones, it is actually cheap too. It is £615 in the UK from Thomann. That's the cheapest place I could find. And from the US, again, falling back on B&H Photo and Video, $895. The other microphone testing as baseline in the second set of tests is the Sennheiser MKH 60. As you will know from my last video, this is an extraordinarily quiet mic. It's got 11 dBA self-noise, and it's got the highest signal-to-noise ratio of any microphone I own. It got me a noise floor of minus 75, despite the self-noise only being slightly lower, which suggests it is not a lack of self-noise. It is very much what it is capturing that is leading to the noise floor being so low. It is my day-to-day microphone, ignoring the fact that right now I have an OC818 plugged in. That's temporary. And once you take into account the MZL cable that I use to make it even shorter, it is a wonderful microphone in terms of size as well. Fractionally too long without the MZL cable, but with it, absolutely perfect. The MKH 8060 is £1,199 from Wex in the UK, and in the US, best price I could find was $1,599, and that is Amazon US. So, as always, I'm going to lead into the tests now, but just as a reminder, there are going to be 2 sets of 20, so these tests will last longer than normal. If you look underneath the video, you'll see I've recorded those sets of tests as 2 separate chapter markers, so if you do want to skip to the second lot, that's quite easy to do.
Cue dramatic music. Cue dramatic music. Or don't, we're not your mom. Or don't, we're not your mom. Crunchazoids. Crunchazoids. Now, imagine the perfect espresso. Now, imagine the perfect espresso. Precision is not an option. Precision is not an option. Talk to someone who gets it. Talk to someone who gets it. I don't think we should go in there. I don't think we should go in there. I brought you a spoon. I brought you a spoon. Oh, it's a lovely day to be a me. Oh, it's a lovely day to be a me. I'm the best magical dog. I'm the best magical dog. All are safe under my protection. All are safe under my protection. Roll up, roll up, roll up, roll up. You just got mud on my shoes. You just got mud on my shoes. I was never in the shadows. I was never in the shadows. Client said it'd be easy. Client said it'd be easy. I'm going to count down from 3 and then... I'm going to count down from 3 and then... Kill them all. Kill them all. She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells by the seashore. Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers. They're right behind you. They're right behind you. Cue dramatic music. Cue dramatic music. Cue dramatic music. Or don't, we're not your mom. Or don't, we're not your mom. Or don't, we're not your mom. Crunchazoids. 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 Now, imagine the perfect espresso. Now, imagine the perfect espresso. Now, imagine the perfect espresso. Precision is not an option. Precision is not an option. Precision is not an option. Talk to someone who gets it. Talk to someone who gets it. Talk to someone who gets it. I don't think we should go in there. I don't think we should go in there. I don't think we should go in there. I brought you a spoon. I brought you a spoon. I brought you a spoon. Oh, it's a lovely day to be a me. Oh, it's a lovely day to be a me. Oh, it's a lovely day to be a me. I'm the best magical dog. I'm the best magical dog. I'm the best magical dog. All are safe under my protection. All are safe under my protection. All are safe under my protection. Roll up. Roll up. Roll up. Roll up. Roll up. Roll up. You just got mud on my shoes. You just got mud on my shoes. You just got mud on my shoes. I was never in the shadows. I was never in the shadows. I was never in the shadows. Client said it'd be easy. Client said it'd be easy. Client said it'd be easy. I'm going to count down from 3 and then... I'm going to count down from 3 and then... I'm going to count down from 3 and then... Kill them all. Kill them all. Kill them all. She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells by the seashore. Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers. They're right behind you. They're right behind you. They're right behind you.
Okay, and as you know, if you've seen any of my videos before, I also like to compare how the microphones sound once they've been processed for audiobooks. Now, I don't use the kind of audiobook chain I sell to other people, and I don't use the kind that I use for myself. I use a fairly standardized one that I can use on all the microphones I'm testing, and the only thing I really change is the EQ curve. Again, there are 2 sets of tests. Again, there are chapter markers to allow you to go to the second one. So in the first test, you'll hear the first paragraph of Winnie the Pooh read on the 2017 and 4017. And then in the second test, you'll hear the 4017 and the CS-M1 and the MKH 8060.
Here is Edward Bear, coming downstairs now, bump, 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 on the back of his head, behind Christopher Robin. It is, as far as he knows, the only way of coming downstairs, but sometimes he feels that there really is another way, if only he could stop bumping for a moment and think of it. And then he feels that perhaps there isn't. Anyhow, here he is at the bottom and ready to be introduced to you, Winnie the Pooh. Here is Edward Bear, coming downstairs now, bump, 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 on the back of his head, behind Christopher Robin. It is, as far as he knows, the only way of coming downstairs, but sometimes he feels that there really is another way, if only he could stop bumping for a moment and think of it. And then he feels that perhaps there isn't. Anyhow, here he is at the bottom and ready to be introduced to you, Winnie the Pooh. Here is Edward Bear, coming downstairs now, bump, 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 on the back of his head, behind Christopher Robin. It is, as far as he knows, the only way of coming downstairs, but sometimes he feels that there really is another way, if only he could stop bumping for a moment and think of it. And then he feels that perhaps there isn't. Anyhow, here he is at the bottom and ready to be introduced to you, Winnie the Pooh. Here is Edward Bear, coming downstairs now, bump, 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 on the back of his head, behind Christopher Robin. It is, as far as he knows, the only way of coming downstairs, but sometimes he feels that there really is another way, if only he could stop bumping for a moment and think of it. And then he feels that perhaps there isn't. Anyhow, here he is at the bottom and ready to be introduced to you, Winnie the Pooh. Here is Edward Bear, coming downstairs now, bump, 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 on the back of his head, behind Christopher Robin. It is, as far as he knows, the only way of coming downstairs, but sometimes he feels that there really is another way, if only he could stop bumping for a moment and think of it. And then he feels that perhaps there isn't. Anyhow, here he is at the bottom and ready to be introduced to you, Winnie the Pooh.
So chances are you've jumped straight to this section rather than listening to those tests. And honestly, I don't blame you. I'm honestly rethinking of changing how I do my videos in the future, and I will come back to that right at the end of this video. But my conclusions, as will probably not surprise anyone, given how I started the video with the fact that I'm using a different microphone despite owning this, my list of what I don't like is longer than what I like. To be honest, that's normally true of my videos, let's be honest. So what I do like is that when processed, it sounds richer to me than the DPA 2017 and the CS-M1. I'm not sure whether the MKH 8060 or the 4017 sounds better, but because I'm not using the FX chain that I would use in either case, I would use a much more individualized FX chain specifically for me and that microphone in the right recording environment. The FX chain I use in these videos takes a couple of minutes to set up. The FX chain I use properly, or the FX chains that you buy from me, may take up an hour, if not longer, to kind of get ready. So, if you wanted a shotgun microphone equivalent to the MKH 8050, something with a wide frequency response, something good for Foley or whatever, but you didn't want the polar pattern to be as wide as the MKH 8050, not that that has a particularly wide polar pattern anyway, then this would be an amazing microphone. But that seems a bit niche, to be honest. But maybe that's what you're after if you're recording, out and about and you're recording a film. Perhaps that is what you want. It's not what I want. That's it for what I like. What I didn't like is a longer list. So even with the A15 HP, it sounds very bassy and very boomy to me. And there's a lot of lower frequency hiss making it through. Hiss, rumble, hissy rumble that makes it through due to the A15 HP not being the most steep high-pass filter in the world. I thought that worst of all was its performance on the precision is not an option test. And that's the proximity effect test. It just effectively brought out the worst of what was already a problem. I also found that the hiss on the whisper test is incredible. Now, if you've noticed that, I think something went wrong with the tests. I'm not going to hold that against the microphone. It really shouldn't have been louder than the background noise in the CS-M1. What this really highlights, to be honest, let me hold that thought. Last thought before that, just to note, I think it struggles more at lower volumes due to the lack of the presence bump. I imagine that would also make it struggle a bit at further distances. So it's a bit of a confusing microphone, to be honest. And the main conclusion I get from this is I think this highlights just how impressive, even though I'm not a fan, I still think the 2017 is a really impressive microphone because it is, yes, it is longer than the 4017C. I think it must be about the same size as the 4017B, but it kind of has a built-in high-pass filter rather than a switch. But it is, the 2017 is much cheaper and otherwise very similar and just a stunking microphone. I mean, it is a newer microphone. One last thought before I tell you about what's coming up next time. As I mentioned, I'm thinking of changing the way I do videos. This is the last microphone review I'm doing for a while. I'm going to be, I've got one or two more kind of microphone comparison videos, but it's another one in my good microphones for bad environments video, Shotguns Redux, showcasing a lot of the recent reviews up against each other. But, that's not a new microphone being reviewed. And I do have some recordings made of recording the MKH 8060 and the CS-M1 simultaneously, which is a rarity that I can do that. And I'd quite like to release that at some point, but, no rush. If you are a regular watcher of my viewers, I would be very interested to know what you would like to get from the section in the section in the middle. I'm aware from looking at my YouTube stats that my viewership dips quite substantially during the tests, both sets of tests. I'm thinking of dropping the Winnie the Pooh test entirely. I don't know what to drop, if anything, in the kind of the 1 to 20, the lines 1 to 20. Please let me know. Finally, just to let you know what's coming up next time, all going planned in a couple of days, but I don't know if I'm going to keep to that schedule. So I am reviewing Voxducker from United Plugins. They gave me a free copy in return for a review. As you will know from my last review of a United Plugins plugin, that does not remotely guarantee a positive review. But I am quite hopeful about Voxducker, to be honest. So I'm going to be putting it up against TrackSpacer and Smart Comp 2, not Smart Comp 3, as a sidechain compressor, and any other sort of ducking, basic ducking plugin, because Voxducker works in quite a few different modes, which is quite cool. So anyway, come back and join me next time. And thank you for watching this unusually long video. And, as always, just thank you. And please like and subscribe, particularly the subscribe, because it really helps keep me motivated when the occasional video just doesn't land quite well. Thanks very much. Bye.